more to say about the war?
The veteran's name is Jack Fant. He served in the 9th Air Force in World War II. He achieved the rank of Sergeant First Class. We are recording this on November 8, 2014. I'm Will Hines and I'm conducting this interview. No relation. So Mr. Fant, can you kind of talk about growing up in Lockhart, South Carolina, and your family background and all of that?
Well, my grandfather started Monarch Mills, and Monarch Mills had 3 mills, 2 in Union and 1 in Lockhart. And so when my father got out of college, they sent him down there at Lockhart as a general manager and all. And they eventually started the Lockhart Power Company. And my father had 7 children, my father and mother, and 6 boys and 1 girl. And we had a good life there. And
where did you go to school there?
We went to school to Lockhart High School, and in the 10th grade my father was going to send us to prep school, and my uncle lived in Columbia, so he said it'd be better to send him down there. So my brother and I were just 13 months apart in age, so we went to Columbia High School and stayed with a great aunt down there. And we finished Columbia High, and my brother went to the Citadel, and I went to University, South Carolina, and then later went to Clemson to take textiles.
Okay. You said you studied in the Serene building that they had just built. Did that used to be a textile building?
Yeah, that was the first bit. That was a real new textile building, Serene building, and they didn't have all the equipment in there. We had put some of that in as students and all. And on my senior project, I remember another boy and I, we were supposed to make a fabric and start from the cotton, and we went through all the processes of the manufacturing, and we got everything ready, and on the loom we were trying to get it to weave, and the ends would break out, and we called the professor, and he said, well, I'll get you, said, we haven't got the humidity in here yet. Said the building's so new. Said I'll fix that. So he got a flit gun, and one of us had to stand behind the loom and spray the ends of the fabric coming in, and they wouldn't break out then. So that was right interesting.
So when did you graduate from Clemson? 1942?
In 1940.
Okay. And what did you do right after you graduated?
I got a job with the Exxon as a lubrication industry there. And I didn't like that being a salesman much. So then I went back and got a job in the cotton mill at Lockhart, and draft was about to get me, so I went ahead and volunteered. And
now, where did you go down to enlist?
I went down to Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
I can't think of the name of the
why did you choose the Air Force? Or the Air Corps wasn't a separate branch then?
Well, I had washed out of when I went in, before I went into the service, I joined the Air Force. and went down I can't think of his name. But anyway, I went down to Georgia and was in training down there. And I had a check ride with the lieutenant, and he didn't like the way I flew, so I got out and then came home for a while and then volunteered because the draft was about to get me. And so then I went down to Savannah, Georgia Air Base, and from there we went on to
So what did you do at Savannah Air Base? Did you know that you were going into communications at Savannah, or?
No, we were just there a short while, and they sent some of us up to the University of Georgia to take radio training, and we finished that, and we went on to Carolina maneuvers in June of '42, and then stayed there till September, and then September we went right on down to Louisiana maneuvers down in Alexandria, Louisiana, and from there we went to Birmingham Army Air Base and stayed there until May 42, and then we went to New York and boarded the Queen Elizabeth and took us 5 days to go on the Queen Elizabeth, and I don't know how many, but it was rumored they had about 10,000 on the soldiers on the Queen Elizabeth, and we went to Greenock, Scotland. At that time, the Queen Elizabeth was faster than anything, and they could outrun submarines, and we had air support. They would fly, the United States would fly protection if anything happened. And then the RAF, we got out so far in the Atlantic, the RAF would fly protection if anything happened.
So I kind of want to go back to your training a little bit. What did your normal day consist of in training? What did you have to learn to be in communications?
Well, you learn the Morse code, and
how difficult was that to learn? How long did it take you? Was it something that you picked up on pretty quickly?
They had a regular course, and it took about 3 months. But anybody with any musical experience, now they could pick up that Morse code right quick.
Really?
I didn't have that experience. Anyway.
So did you have to go to basic training, or did you ever have to?
No, we had a little bit of basic training down there at Savannah Air Base, but we didn't have much basic training.
What else did you learn besides Morse code?
I guess that was about it. We practiced on that. And
did you ever learn anything with radar? Did you learn how they worked? And
no, I didn't get into that section.
Okay.
And also the breakdown of the codes and all that. We were all together when we were in France and all, London. We had an outfit about 100 men, and we were always out by ourselves.
So you got to Scotland, and you went immediately to London?
No, went down to Reading for about 2 or 3 weeks, and they picked some of us out to go to London, and we went to London and trained down there with some civilians, and they intelligence and all that, and we were supposed to keep everything that we learned secret and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we stayed there about 2 months, 3 months.
And you said you trained with the RAF. And what did that consist of?
They set us up there, and we were in a little village and stayed in Quonset huts, about 10 men in a Quonset hut. They had a bunch of those grouped around. We would, the RAF intelligence place was about 5 miles from where we were, and we'd go over there every day and stay till, we'd go there at 8 o'clock in the morning and stay till 5. And we trained with right beside operator and all, and saw how the Germans were sending codes and all that. And the RAF had been doing this since World War I, and they had all the information of any German airplane when it came off of the factory line. They gave them a call number, and when it came out of the manufacturer, they sent them to a certain air base the Germans had, and you knew from then on what that plane was. You hear the signals from that plane, you knew what air base it was and what type of plane it was.
So they knew all the numbers of the planes the Germans had?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they'd been keeping up with that intelligence, and if they couldn't get intelligence, the British would send rangers over there and raid a place and get the information they wanted. And we had, I guess, stacks of loose leaf notebooks with all the airbase call signals and all that planes. And the Germans would change the frequency of the radio and all. And the Germans the planes didn't have navigators like the United States. They would do by radio, and the planes would radio back to the station, the air base where they were, and they would change the frequency, trying to mess up the British or whoever was trying to copy the information. And they would change the frequency about 2 or 3 o'clock every Sunday morning. And so the British knew exactly what the Germans were so systematic. They wouldn't change anything for nothing. And so the British would give us all the information after we got over in France, and we would change and we would keep up with a certain air base or a certain 2 or 3, and we'd change our radios to that frequency, pick them right up.
So what type of stuff did you intercept from the Germans? As in, was it Morse code, or was it a different type of code they had?
It was Morse code, and it was in groups of 4, like 4 digits. and skip, and then you'd add 4 more. And that was the code, and we'd pass that on to our intelligence outfit that would break all those codes, and they would make something out of those 4-digit numbers.
Okay, so your job was to sit there and hear those numbers and write down what you hear.
We'd write down. We had regular form sheets, and we'd write it down who it was from and all that.
Okay.
And if we had any problems of not knowing exactly which one was, the radar, we would call our radar outfit. They were usually about maybe 50 or 100 yards from where we were. They were always out a little bit so they wouldn't interfere with anything. And the radar would try to pick them up and determine where they were.
And so were you intercepting a lot of times signals from German planes?
Sometimes. And one big thing we did, the Germans had 2 planes, weather planes. They would go fly up around the North Sea and up around Scotland, and that's where the weather came in. And they would radio that back to the headquarters in Germany. And they would send a plane down every morning, and then one late in the afternoon. And the RAF and the United States Air Force had strict orders not to ever shoot one of those down.
Because they're giving you all information.
Yeah, they were giving you information.
Wow.
And that's where the weather came in, from that direction, more or less. And so that was one good thing that they did.
So you were in the small village, living in the hut, and how long did you stay there in England?
Oh, in England? Oh, we stayed, I guess, about 9 months.
And this is into the beginning of the beginning of 1944.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we went down to southern England, down at Tidworth, and the Australians were beginning there when they moved on down south. They were moving everything down South England to get ready for the invasion, see. And
yeah, could you notice that D-Day was going to happen, the invasion of Normandy, because of the troops that were all in England, or did you see any of that?
Well, you knew it was coming, but you didn't exactly know when, but it was getting pretty close, because we had to service all our vehicles. We had a few vehicles, and put the exhaust up in the air, because when you went off of the landing craft over there at Normandy, the landing craft couldn't go all the way up to the beach, so you'd ended up getting off in the water about knee deep or so, and so we were getting all our vehicles lined up for that.
And you did that in April or May, or did they?
Huh?
When did they get you to service your vehicles? What month? Do you remember?
Oh, it must have been about the first part of May, probably. And
so you could see all the troops that were amassing in England, or did you see any?
Oh yeah, you'd see more coming every day. But
so, did you do anything in direct relation to the invasion? Did you intercept any codes? Did you
Oh, yeah, we intercepted a lot, and the morning that they invaded, we had planes. The RAF would fly at night, and the American Air Force would take over in the daytime. So that day, the RAF was in force heavier than usual, and they just flew all night long. And as soon as that was over, the Americans were flying. That was the invasion. We knew it then.
Mm-hmm.
And our operators and all, we had 3 shifts. We ran 3 8-hour shifts. And we were pretty much focused from the RAF. That's what they figured out is the best thing to do. And so we had 3 shifts on everything.
So when did you go to France? Because you said you were in France, correct?
We went normally, we were supposed to go D+5, and we went, D was the D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
And we were supposed to go D+5, but we ended up, because of that storm they had, we ended up going D+16, I believe.
And where did you land? Did you land on one of the beaches?
In Normandy.
So you took a ship across the English Channel and
we were on a landing craft.
Okay. And which beach did you land on? Do you remember?
Normandy Beach.
Okay. Was it Omaha or the specific one?
Yeah, Omaha.
Okay.
And
now, what did it look like? Where could you still see the destruction of the beach and the German bunkers and?
Yeah. And pillboxes up over the cliffs there. And the tide there in the North Sea, it was something you'd never see before. But it would come up so quick, and it wasn't like the United States tide, it just come up gradual, and it wouldn't come up very high.
Mm-hmm.
But it would come up, it must come up about 10 feet, I'd say. And that's where those cliffs were.
Mm-hmm. I've been to Omaha, and it is a long way up. It's pretty steep too. I just think it's incredible what they were able to do.
Yeah.
But
there was a little lower part where they bulldozed out, I guess, and that's where we came in.
Okay.
And then we went up just a short distance from the beach, and that's where we pitched our pup tents under the hedgerow.
Okay.
Those hedgerows, did you see them?
Yes, sir.
And that's where we stayed a good while. And the Germans would come over there at night, send an airplane or two, trying to drop sea mines. And they would drop them out there to try to intercept some of the boats coming in. And so anyway, the aircraft would get a hold of them, and they would turn back a lot of times.
So, could you hear any fighting from where you were whenever you landed, or was the fighting pushed back?
Yeah, it was about 5 or 10 miles ahead of us. You could hear.
You could hear the artillery and.
Yeah.
And I bet you could hear the guns, the ships firing over your head to the Germans.
No, we didn't hear much of that. I guess they were a little further in.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get into that.
Okay.
It's mostly supply and bringing in troops and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess later they moved down to St. Lo, I guess, and they had a good dock down there and everything. They could bring stuff in.
Mm-hmm. So you stayed in that spot in Normandy for how long beside the hedgerows?
We stayed there, I guess, about a month.
Wow.
And then we moved up to Short and moved out in apple orchard and right near Chartres. And we stayed there until they freed Paris. And we moved in to a chateau right out of Paris the next day, Saint Cloud. And it was on a big hill and a big chateau, I guess you'd call it. The Germans had been in there, and they had built a swimming pool and a little barrack, and we set up operations there in the chateau.
So this whole time you were intercepting code
Yeah.
and writing it down. Okay. And so did you still work in the 8-hour shifts even though you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we passed all our information to the 9th Air Force headquarters and also the SHAPE headquarters. We had a teletype, one of those old teletypes about that big. They would pass all that information on. And they gave, while we were at Chartres, that's when they invaded southern France. The Americans did.
Mm-hmm. Was that like August, middle of August, or?
Somewhere along in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the date. But anyway, we got a citation from, they called it the Presidential Citation.
Mm-hmm.
And General Hort Vandenberg came down and presented it to us one day. It was for, we were intercepting messages from the Germans. They knew the Allies were coming in there, the Germans did, and they were trying to rescue all the soldiers that they had, the Nazis down there, and they would send transport planes down there to pick them up. And the Americans would go down there and shoot them down. So they gave us credit for that.
Neat.
So that was right interesting, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So did you end up moving out from Paris and kind of following the invasion as they moved inland, or?
No, we stayed there and we did intercept the same, and we intercepted a lot of information when the Battle of the Bulge up there in Belgium, and you could hear the United States trucks and tanks and everything moving through. You could hear them all night long there. And after that, the Germans gave up or whatever, we moved up to right out of Frankfurt, Germany.
Okay.
And it was a spa. They call them Bad, B-A-D. And this was Bad Wildale that we stayed in. And we stayed there till we went on. We had, they gave us points for certain things and how long you'd been in and what battles you'd been in. And they had certain dates on battle zones. And they had 4 battle zones in Germany. And if you moved in with those certain dates, even though we never did get into anything and hardly heard anything, we got 4 battle stars.
Really?
Yeah. We could hear some of it, but that was about the extent of it.
Yes, sir.
So we got 4 battle stars. That gave us so many points, and so some of us, well, right after we set up there and right out of Frankfurt.
And this is this the beginning of 1945?
It's what?
Is this the beginning of 1945 when you set up in Frankfurt?
Yeah, that was in, let's see, August, about September, I guess. August, September.
Okay.
And we immediately started keeping up with the Russians. So you knew then we weren't too friendly with the Russians.
So you were, instead of keeping track of what the Germans were sending, you started keeping track more of what the Russians were sending.
We were trying to, but we couldn't, we didn't, while I was there, we didn't learn all those German. They had baud numbers, they called it. Two alphabets, numbers that go together, and all that stuff. And I never did learn it quite before I left. I guess some of them done it. And another interesting thing, while we were there, we were we were by ourselves everywhere, and they moved carrier pigeon outfit in with us, and there was about 10 men, and they had 2 or 3 cages of carrier pigeons, and they had used those during the war, and they would just let them sit there and rest. They'd get them, train them a little bit. They'd let them out during the day there, and they'd come back. I had never heard that before.
That's interesting. And so in late 1945, you got enough points to go home for good. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were the few of us. We boarded a train and went to Antwerp, Belgium. We were on those old 40 and 8, you heard of 40 and 8?
No, sir.
Box cars that Europe had. These were 40 and 8s. They were supposed to haul 40 men, and they could haul 8 horses. So that's where the 40 and 8 came from. And it was, I don't know how many of us were in there, but it wasn't 40. We were in there, and we had our backpacks, and we tried to. It took us about 3 days to get across to Antwerp, and we'd go through some of those rail yards like Hamburg, you know, and the rails would be all bent up and from bombing and everything, and they had fixed something. We stayed in Antwerp, I think it was about a week or 10 days, and the reason we didn't get out right away, the West Coast longshoremen had a strike, and that held up the shipping and the receiving of the Atlantic coast and all. So we were a little longer getting on the boat. We got on one of those victory boats to come home in the North Sea. It came down the North Sea there in the Atlantic. And some places were getting kind of rough, the sea was. Those victory boats, they were made by Kaiser Aluminum in California and somewhere else, I believe. They just welded them together, and you'd hear stories of them falling apart.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't have any. They were mostly for supplies. They weren't built for troops or anything. And they had a bunch of us on that thing, and we were down in the hole, and you could sleep on the floor or whatever you do. You could go out on the deck, but coming across the Atlantic, it wasn't too bad, but about 2 days out of New York, we hit an awful storm. And that storm was blowing waves across the thing and from the front to the back, and you couldn't get out on the deck at all.
Really?
And so then everybody on there got sick. I lasted about a day and a half, and that got me then. And they were sick all over that place, and it was awful.
So you got back into New York Harbor, and it was there?
Yeah, we got straightened out then, and we got in New York Harbor on November 11th.
Wow. And were there any crowds out there to...
Oh yeah, they were celebrating. Of course, they were celebrating November 11th, because that used to be Armistice Day, they called it, you know. And they had those fireboats shooting water up in there, and they had one big boat out there with a band on it, and they were playing Sentimental Journey. And that was about it.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Fant, I really do appreciate you for your service.
Okay.
And thank you for letting me interview you.
Okay.